Welcome to another episode of Horror Score. This week's episode,
Wishmaster.
Oh, you beat me.
I did it first.
Oh, you win.
I win.
We're your hosts, Jesse.
Vanessa.
And before we get started this week, Vanessa, I was wondering, could you tell the people at home just something about yourselves? Sometimes we just get right into scoring stuff, and they're like, who are these two people? Who are they? Something? Anything about you?
I collect Pusheen memorabilia.
All right.
I guess.
Okay.
And I lift weights a lot.
And I think I have the second largest Transformers collection in New Hampshire. So that's something.
I think it's the first.
There's a guy who also lives in the same town we live in. Definitely has a bigger collection. And he never opens anything.
Is he single?
No, he's married and has a bunch of kids. This episode, normally we do a little bit more obscure or really new movies, but every once in a while, we've got to do like a classic.
It's usually because I like a lot of like specific genre horror, and then there's some classics that have just completely gone off my radar. And one of them was Wishmaster, and I kept seeing it on the DVD shelf, and I was like, I really want to see Wishmaster. And you were like, you've never seen Wishmaster? How are we even qualified to have this horror show?
The thing is, I'd seen this movie a bunch of times growing up in college, but my last watch was probably like a decade ago, and I've learned so much about horror since then that this time watching it, so many Easter eggs, and we're going to uncover as many of those as we can.
So yeah, safe to say this is my first watch, and it's not his.
No, it's like my fifth, sixth, whatever. But it's good.
Yeah, I'd watch it again.
Me too. Now, real quick, my whole life I've been saying Dojin instead of Jin. I don't know. Is that bad?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a nice refreshing gin and tonic later.
No, but is it a word that could be said both ways, or is there no exception ever, do you think?
I mean, this is one of those classic, like, is there a standard English kind of thing? So just say whatever you want, and as long as people understand what you're saying or what you're trying to say, like, I don't think you've done it wrong, incorrectly.
Well, disclaimer, throughout this episode, I understand that the popular opinion now is that it is pronounced Jin. I may say Dojin several times, and I would like to just hang a hat on that now.
Okay, I'd like to giggle whenever you do that.
Well, okay.
Let's go to story.
All right, let's talk about the story to this movie. Kind of basic. Well, the basic plot, right?
If you've seen Aladdin...
Well, he's more like Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar.
Yeah, he's spooky Aladdin.
He's got to grant so many wishes, and then he can take over the universe.
Right.
End of story. And he'll grant whatever wishes you want, but he's going to twist your words. You got to choose your words carefully.
Oh, it's terrible. I hate those people.
Yeah.
Always just try to make you look like a bad guy.
There was a part where a security guard got one over on him for a moment, which I thought was pretty good, where he's like, I wish you'd just get out of here. And he was like,
and that was one of that was one of my favorite deaths, though, ultimately, because he eventually says, he's like, you'll have to go through me first. And I was like, he can do that.
Yeah. But I liked it. It starts really strong, too. There's a crazy party that just goes out of control like thousands of years ago. But I gave it a 13. What about you?
I give it a 12.
All right. Yeah, there's no big surprises.
It wasn't the most original, I didn't blow my socks off or anything, but it was a followable plot.
And it is enjoyable. And there's so many little things popping up that you've always got something to be like, oh, is that this person? Or is that a thing from that movie?
It is. It always is.
And it always is every time.
100%.
Well, it's hard to not talk about the story without talking about the villain. So let's move into that category. You want to lead us in?
I will.
All right, lead us in.
Okay. I love philosophy. And we have a great professor in this story that just an unexpectedly great character. But anyway, back to the villain. He has the best philosophical quotes throughout Like before he murders someone, it's that whole like Dr. Evil thing where he has to tell you like exactly the importance of this death or his work. But he said at one point, a vulnerable world of disbelief where reason cannot save you. And it was just kind of like chilling because I mean, frankly, that is kind of like the state of our nation, separation of church and state, a whole like reason over religion and that kind of thing, and here's this thing that's older than the earth like telling you like your reason is bullshit.
I like a villain who speaks and speaks eloquently, like the Cenobites from the Hellraiser movies, or the ones that talk.
They were very much like the Cenobite. He was rather.
He's likable. So Andrew Divoff does a very like good job portraying the Jinn throughout the movie, and he comes.
His voice
is great.
He brings a great voice to a villain.
So I liked this villain, and that's why I gave him a 15. I think he's reasonably like top tier cool factor for villains. Like he's insanely powerful. He's got a bunch of flaws that are exploitable, but I love
when his flaws show. Like when you mentioned that body, damn. like yeah, it was funny, and I think I gave him too few points. I think I robbed him a little bit, but I gave him a 13.
All right. Well, you can't win them all. He does his role pretty well in the sequel as well. And then for whatever reason, they get rid of him. I don't know if he didn't want to come back, but they get John Novak is the Jinn in part 3 and 4. Not as good. Like it's not the same, and it's very noticeable. But I did read a rumor on the internet that Divoff would come back for Wishmaster 5 if they asked him. So
yeah, and Keanu Reeves will do Constantine, like another Constantine movie, but we can wait for those for years. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'd like to see him return, or even in a crossover if possible. All right, let's talk about the horror in this movie.
The horror.
You want to lead us into horror?
Okay. So many rich people die. Like the body count in this.
It's hard to keep track because it starts really strong. Like,
yeah, that whole history scene, like in ancient Persia, or
it was somewhere probably
something like that. A bunch of people die there. There's a nice California party at the end. Basically, everybody dies there. The skeleton was practical effects coming out of while leaving all the gore behind was very clearly like they had a makeup guy like down there throwing buckets of blood on this shell of a human being.
And if you haven't noticed, Vanessa is a big fan of skeletons.
Yes.
So, spooky skeleton. Yeah.
So I gave it a 14 because they definitely threw a lot of bodies at us.
This was my lowest category, though I enjoyed the movie and a lot of the wildly crazy deaths like you were just explaining.
Like with the ice swan?
Yeah, some of the deaths were a little comical. So that it took away some of the horror points for me. Like, I gave it a 12. Still good, but I found at no point, like there's no jump scares. The Jinn on his own can be scary.
So scary.
His little dominion inside the cube was also very scary and very like Hellraiser-like. But I felt that the horror could have been pushed more. That's why I gave it a 12. So now we can move on to effects. What do you think?
Like I said before, like the amount of practical effects that they threw into this movie. But at the beginning, I was very clearly won over to give this category a high score because of Baby Wishmaster. Like when he comes back, because there's this ruby that like brings him back. So whenever he comes back, he's just this tiny little baby Wishmaster, and he gains power and strength and everything from granting people these wishes. And so there's this baby Wishmaster who is wonderfully done, but it's really Vern Troyer.
Good old Mini-Me from Austin Powers 2 and 3.
Yeah. And this person has just been like basically mauled in this explosion, and he just kind of like crawls over to him and he says, "Is the pain terrible? Do you want me to take it away?" And the guy like nods his head, so that's how he gets his first wish. I wish he hadn't done that, so that he could have stayed Baby Wishmaster
for the whole movie,
for a little while longer at least.
What'd you give it?
15.
15. I gave it a 14, and it was because they turned to the CGI a little bit too often. Their practical effects were great. Every time we see him, we're like, oh, that's cool, that's neat. And the Djinn looks fantastic. He's one of the, I think, best looking just horror villains out there. He looks awesome.
Really influenced the Jeepers Creeper.
You think he looks like
character.
the Creeper?
Absolutely, yeah.
Put a hat on him and a trench coat.
And the little tentacles and the teeth.
Well, the things that bothered me was when they turned to CGI, it was the CGI had not, affordable CGI had not hit a level yet where it's not distracting from the movie. So there's like a great death with the security guard that she was mentioning that ends with bad CGI. Yeah. So there's a lot of scenes that start with really good practical effects, and then they move into really cringy
It's so noticeable
CGI.
Whenever they use the CGI. And I was actually reading old, like I read from the LA Times and some old reviews from fall of 1997, like movie reviews from this, and times just must have changed because the reviewers definitely judged their use of practical effects over the CGI. Like they think they leaned too much on the buckets of blood and the gore and not enough on the computer animated.
It's weird,
which was kind of bizarre, and I was like, that's like a completely different attitude from what we horror fans expect nowadays.
Yeah, and just why back then couldn't they look at that and be like, does that look okay?
Look, our vision has changed.
Because our standards shouldn't have gone up too much. Jurassic Park was 92, 93, and like some of those, the first time you see the dinosaurs, they're real dinosaurs. They look fantastic. So the technology was there, but I digress. So this takes us to our final category in this horror scoring, and that's the S factor, which we have borrowed from Doomsday Preppers. It's that extra category where we can award points arbitrarily for whatever reason, whether it's camp, nudity, humor, star power, and in this case, amazing cameos. Who's on your list?
On my personal favorite cameo list?
Yeah.
Because the names just don't stop.
They don't stop. Let's take turns.
All right. Tony Todd was probably my favorite cameo because he got a lot of lines, and there was this wonderful back and forth between the Wishmaster and Tony Todd's character, whose name was Johnny Valentine, which so they had a great back and forth, and I really liked the dialogue, but he got cheated.
How's about Angus Scrimm? That's right. This is the third time I've mentioned Angus Scrimm in 4 episodes, but he was the narrator in the opening scene. I never knew that. I actually went to IMDb afterwards, double checking some names, and I was like, that was Angus Scrimm.
You might as well do his buddy too.
Oh, that's right. Never noticed this before. But Reggie Bannister from the Phantasm series.
Apparently.
He's a
pharmacist.
Yeah, and in that scene is an uncredited appearance by Tom Savini as a customer as well. Well, we've got more.
Ted Raimi on this one because he was in Shocker as well, which was just our previous review. So Ted Raimi. Wes Craven produced this. He directed Shocker, but he only produced this. He was the money. And that was another thing that was in the reviews from 1997. They all hated this movie, that's just a garbage review. They all hated it, and they just kept taking shots at Wes Craven for putting his name on it and funding it as a producer and everything.
I don't see how you can poke holes in a movie that has an appearance by Robert Englund. And he was an art collector. There's a little Easter egg. He has the Pazuzu statue from The Exorcist among his collection, which I thought was really cool. Is that? Yep, that's exactly what that is. Yeah. I thought that was cool.
And I do want to applaud you for saying Pazuzu.
It's not my fault. My whole life, well, not my whole life. I think at a trivia night a couple years ago.
Straight out of the womb.
I learned, because I didn't know the answer, to what was the name of the demon from The Exorcist, and I thought that I heard that it was Pazuzu, but no, it is Pazuzu. So yeah, whatever. Any other big names?
Kane Hodder.
Kane Hodder. He was the security guard who got that you mentioned previously.
So all in all, I gave it a 16 because I love cameos. It's a treat.
In the S Factor category, I gave it 15 points. I was pleased from start to finish, which is good because sometimes when you review a movie that you liked years ago and then you realize that it doesn't hold up, it sucks. And in
Are
this
you
movie,
still having shocker
I am
flashbacks?
still having shocker flashbacks. This movie, except for some of the dated CGI, I think still holds up, and I definitely will watch it again. So before we add our totals together, we've got Vanessa's one-sentence synopsis.
A being older than the Earth is outwitted by a 20-something-year-old gemologist.
And there you have it. So that gives me a grand total of 69 points for Wishmaster.
70.
It's not bad. Very close for a combined average of 69.5. That's 69 and a half reasons why you should check out Wishmaster. And give us 10 minutes. Maybe we'll save you 2 hours. And as this is Wishmaster, I guess this is the time where I say that I wish that you would like, subscribe, and maybe even comment below. What would you wish for, Vanessa?
Oh, I know what I'd wish for. Stay spooky.